Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Missing Piece. I am your host, Kenny Hill. Happy to see you all this morning. Pokemon Girl, I hope you've had a fabulous holiday for those of you who are stateside and were celebrating 4th of July. I feel like I haven't streamed in months, even though it's probably been weeks. Riz, I'm glad that you made it over to the East Coast safely. I just realized I think I have oatmeal in my teeth. It's great. It's a good time. Frulio, good morning. Gonna be lurking for a bit. Talk to you soon. Hope everything is well. Things are better. For those of you who were keeping up in my personal Discord, I was having some back issues. Oh boy. I am like either really out of shape or I did something really stupid. Probably some combination of both would be my actual guess. I tore or strained something in my back. It's much better now. So I needed to take some time off for that. It's been great. Save it for later. Save it for later. Save it for later. Okay, Riz. Pokemon Girl doing some laundry. I did a lot of laundry yesterday. I was just talking to Pidgey last night about laundry situation because we inherited a laundry setup that we have been using since we moved into this space. And they are really they're not family sized. They're barely Pidgey and Kenny sized. So someday, once we have really run these other ones into the ground, we will probably upgrade. Mellow, hello, good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hopefully you're getting through the work well, and things have been treating you well this week. I'm gonna go ahead and change our music over here. Something sad has happened over the weekend. Pokemon Girl, I am sorry to hear that, but that does remind me that the requests are open, exclamation point request, to get to the link that houses our Google form, to share any prayer requests, praise announcements that you might have. I have a praise. I'm 30. I turned 30 last week. I'm as of today, I am a week and a day over 30. It's been not what I thought it was. It was kind of all downhill right after I turned 30 with the whole back issue and the health stuff going on, but it's come back around. An actor from Descendants has died, and he was very young. Oh man, it's always rough when public figures pass, because it affects a lot more, or seemingly affects a lot more people. And then, especially when they're young, I think people seem to get more beat up over people going before their time, as if we know what God's timing is like. But you just gotta hope that they knew the Lord, and that there are Christians in place to help those who are grieving, and being good stewards during that. I am not a good one. I'm not a good person to have around. I think I can be very comforting, but I can also be very matter of fact about the nature of humanity and the circle of life. That it can get to people. I haven't been in a lot of those situations in the first place, but it's like I haven't learned when it's appropriate to say what thing. He was 20. That is quite young. I mean, compared to the average lifespan of a male, which I think these days is pretty high. I think women still live longer. Weirdly. I'm sure there's all kinds of reasons to account for that. But before we jump into any sort of discussion or anything today, now that we've said hello, I don't know for sure when the regular time of the missing piece is going to be. We're going to play with some of these later time slots, so like 10 or 9 a.m. Pacific, which is 1 or noon Eastern. We're going to be playing... I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. We're going to be playing with some time slots over the next few weeks, trying to figure out like when is this kind of content best serving the community. So if you want to stay up to date, be sure to head on over to twitch.tv/higherscoregaming, hit that follow button and turn on notifications. I know Mad King Bob has been streaming some music production stuff. I will be back here now regularly now that my back is feeling better and the holidays are over and all that stuff with the missing piece. How do you feel now that you're 30? It feels... Well, I mean, I hurt my back, so that was sort of the ironic thing that happened, right? It's like, as soon as I turned 30, I had a doctor's appointment the next morning, and I had hurt my back. So it's just like, is this it? Is it my 30s? Is my life over? Am I just gonna like fall apart from here? It really doesn't feel any different. As far as the mentality, I guess, you always think it will. Sorry, I know I just said that we were gonna like jump into our scripture reading, which is gonna be Proverbs 10, so get your Bibles ready, because when we go, we go. But like, you always think, oh, it's gonna feel so different I think when you're little, it's like when I'm a teenager, right? So it's like when I'm 13, it's gonna feel so different. And then when I'm 16, it's gonna feel so different. It's like, that's literally 3 years different, which is nothing. It's a lot when you're younger, because like, proportionally, it's much more of your life. When I'm 18, I'm gonna feel so different. When I'm 21, I like that those are the big milestones, right? When I'm 21, or I guess maybe when you're 20, because it's like, oh, I'm not a teenager anymore. You know, I'm not 19. I'm not 20-teen. I'm 20. Then 21, it's like, oh, I can drink alcohol. Woo. And then I guess like after 21, I don't know, some people freak out around 25 for some reason. Like, it's because it's a quarter century. And then like 30, and then after 30, it's just like death. Like, what is there to look forward to? No, I kid. But it really, I think every time you like actually have that solar milestone of like, I have made another revolution around the sun, I should feel different. But you don't really, because it's sort of like you don't notice yourself growing taller. You're not like, oh my gosh, I thought 6 foot would feel so different from 5 foot. It's like, it does. If you suddenly went from, it's like when you stand on a box and you're like, whoa, you know, oh my goodness. I mean, I'm almost 6 foot, so that's a bad example. But like, when I stand on something and I go from almost 6 foot to almost 7 foot, I'm just like, whew, this is how the really tall people feel. Like, I'm tall, but like, I'm talking about the real people who make me feel short. The real tall people. My tallest. And it's like, you notice it when it's sudden, but when it's just incremental and you're just growing up, you're just maturing, you're just aging, it doesn't feel different. Because there's not like, in science, we have a term for that, which is like ND, like noticeably different. And that's when differences actually matter. Because if there is no noticeable difference, then the difference doesn't matter. I did see the Switch Lite. We'll talk about that. 25 is also when your brain stops developing scientifically. I think there's a little bit of give on that. But yes, on average, I'm sure 25 is like... Although, because like, I know there's a little bit of give because some people can keep growing into their late 20s. Like, physiologically keep growing. Like, taller, broader, developing. There's a lot of things that will cut that short. Like, did you know if you get pregnant early on, you have more resources devoted towards, you know, literally making a human, and less resources directed towards your own development. So even if you come from a tall family, you might not be as tall as you could have been if you start having kids early. It's a weird thing. ND for me is negligent discharge. That sounds sketch. Okay, real quick before we jump into all of this stuff, because I know I love talking to you guys, and I know I'll get all kinds of rabbit trails and distracted. We're going to read through Proverbs 10. Oh, firearm training. Okay, that means way more to me. I was like, negligent discharge? What does that mean? That means you were not being responsible when your firearm fired. Bad. Bad. All right, we're going to pause the music real quick. Proverbs 10. And I am reading out of the Revised Standard Version. This is a Harper Study Bible. So my translation might be slightly different than yours, but feel free to read along, read out loud, go back and read later to get like the full. I've really enjoyed reading out loud because there's something about it, even though I've read Proverbs a lot. Every time I read it, something new is going on in my life, so I kind of glean something different from the scripture every time. And then reading it out loud, it hits you differently. All right. So, the Proverbs of Solomon. It actually says that. It isn't, it's kind of weird. Like, in the first 9 chapters, I don't remember it saying that at the very beginning. Like, these are the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. Never mind. It does say that, so. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is a sorrow to his mother. Treasures gained by wickedness do not profit, but righteousness delivers from death. The Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, but he thwarts the craving of the wicked. A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. A son who gathers in summer is prudent, but a son who sleeps in harvest brings shame. Blessings are on the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. The memory of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot. The wise of heart will heed commandments, but a prating fool will come to ruin. He who walks in integrity walks securely, but he who perverts his way will be found out. He who winks the eye causes trouble, but he who boldly reproves makes peace. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. On the lips of him who has understanding, wisdom is found, but a rod is for the back of him who lacks sense. Wise men lay up knowledge, but the babbling of a fool brings ruin near. A rich man's wealth is his strong city, the poverty of the poor is their ruin. The wage of the righteous leads to life, the gain of the wicked to sin. He who heeds instruction is on the path to life, but he who rejects reproof goes astray. He who conceals hatred has lying lips, and he who utters slander is a fool. When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is prudent. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver, the mind of the wicked is of little worth. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of sense. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. It is like sport to a fool to do wrong, but wise conduct is pleasure to a man of understanding. What the wicked dreads will come upon him, but the desire of the righteous will be granted. When the tempest passes, the wicked is no more, but the righteous is established forever. Like vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is the sluggard to those who send him. The fear of the Lord prolongs life, but the years of the wicked will be short. The hope of the righteous ends in gladness, but the expectation of the wicked comes to naught. The Lord is a stronghold to him whose way is upright, but destruction to evildoers. The righteous will never be removed, but the wicked will not dwell in the land. The mouth of the righteous brings forth wisdom, but the perverse tongue will be cut off. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked, what is perverse. Oh, man. Where is it? People who talk too much. I'm one of those people. Oh, boy. It's just obviously this juxtaposition between the righteous person and the fool. It uses he and him and man and stuff, which I think is fine. I think it's just a placeholder for people in general. I think that this kind of scripture is applicable to everyone, not just to men, not just to women, not just to children, not just to the elderly. Oh, they'll learn it before you become elderly, right? The babbling of a fool brings ruin near. My goodness. So good. Sorry. Anytime there's something in scriptures about people who talk too much, I mean, it depends on like what kind of talking you're doing, right? Like there's obviously, I have a gift. I have a gift for speech. The gift of gab, as it may be. Some people call it. I mean, we're on Twitch. Yeah, thank you, Riz. We're on Twitch. But there is a balance. There's a delicate balance between, okay, we're on Twitch. I am here to entertain, to interact. But you want to be careful about people who you can kind of tell there's nothing turning the wheels back there, but their mouth is somehow still going. Like they're not really putting any thought into what they're actually saying. They're just saying things to say things. Whether it's for like a certain kind of reaction or, you know, just to engage people in any fashion that they can, right? They're just desperate to keep people on lockdown in chat. And not just on Twitch. This is probably something to look out for if you're like me and you have the privilege to be a part of, you know, different discussion groups, you know, outside of your church experience or even inside your church experience, whether you're doing small groups or villages or home studies. I'm trying to think of like what else these things are usually called. Like mentoring type stuff. You know, some people think that he who talks loudest is right, you know, or he who talks first is is right, or the most knowledgeable, the smartest. You gotta watch out for that. Make sure you're not doing that. Also, like, if this is stuff that you're like, oh man, like I feel that, because I definitely did at a time feel that when I first really started reading Proverbs seriously. I was in high school. I wasn't very smart in high school. I was super judgy. I really thought I knew better because I knew that I was a Christian. I wasn't a very good one. I lacked some things that were kind of quintessential to living a good life, and to being a blessing to others. It's like, it's one of the goals, one of my many goals, being a Christian, is to be a blessing to others. I've already received the best blessing from being a Christian, right? Salvation. What am I giving? What am I giving back? You know, am I the kind of person who, you know, when they speak, they feed the hungry? When, you know, when they speak, they're building you up and you're feeling edified by having them around. That was the stuff I was seriously lacking in high school. I'll tell you what, my little ego, my little teenage ego, had a hard time with that. Especially because I didn't have a church. I didn't have any sort of group, really, where I could kind of take apart these ideas and fellowship with other Christians. Certainly not online. That was like unheard of. So I've been very blessed to be in the community that I'm in, and to have people who will tell me when I say something dumb or think something dumb, and when I think it and then I express it out my face. I was in special ed school. Like, did they have a whole school dedicated to that? Or, like, our school had special education programs. I got to experience kind of both ends of the spectrum. At least when I was growing up in elementary school, I was in kind of accelerated programming for certain things. And then, because of my speech impediment and accent and my difficulty communicating. I know, can you imagine me? Difficulty communicating? I had to go through like speech therapy and stuff. So I guess special ed. It was in like the same area as all that stuff. So it was kind of all in like the same like upper. We had a weird layout for our elementary school. It was like 3 different levels. So it was kind of like a zigzag. And all of the special education, whether it was accelerated or decelerated programming, was all in the same tier. It's very interesting. Oh, Nightbot. Oh, Nightbot, you're so cute. The Missing Piece show is live every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Not this week. You know what? We should just go change that real quick. It's fine. It's fine. Not this week. Not this week. Not my problem. I mean, my problem because I'm the host, right? So I need to fix that. It's fine. Like I said, I don't know when the regular scheduling is going to happen. We're going to be playing with some different time slots for the show over the next couple of weeks, trying sort of like 10 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Pacific, somewhere in there. I feel like the lunchtime slot for East Coasters would be good, and kind of that first thing workday time would be good for, everybody else in between West and East Coast. It's just like, I'll catch you when I catch you, I guess. It's like the one difficult thing about Twitch, I suppose, is like trying to hit as many people as possible. Every Wednesday. Here we go. Let's edit this. Be sure to follow and turn on notifications to never miss a show. That's better. No, we don't need no mention of times. No mention of times or anything like that, which would out us as bad streamers. Bad streamer, not streaming at the time they said. I'm in Central Time, yeah. And so if I go 10 a.m. my Pacific time, that's noon Central. So it's difficult because I feel like a lot of the higher score community is, I mean, some of you are here have kind of, crossed over from my community to higher score. Some of you are mostly higher score. But I feel like in general, they seem to be mostly East Coast. Mostly. Which makes sense because I think the podcast group are mostly, I think they're all East Coasters. T-Rex might not be. He might be Central Time. I could very much be wrong about this, but actually anytime I almost always assume, unless I know better, that other people are Eastern. I don't know why I make that assumption, that all other streamers, unless I know otherwise, I just think of them as Eastern time zone. It's where all the cool kids live, I guess. But yes, actually, so something that was mentioned by Pokemon Girl earlier this morning, which I think would be fun to touch on. I called it. I don't think I have the gift of prophecy or premonition or clairvoyance, but goodness gracious, we have a Nintendo Switch Lite, apparently, coming out. I did not double check that source to see if it was like super legit, but I think enough people are talking about it now that's not like, I hope that it's been verified. And it's basically a Switch with non-detachable Joy-Cons and no rumble, and I think it's slightly lighter. I think it seems like the screen, it's still 720. It's not going to be dockable. It's basically like a single screen, which is what I had kind of been joking about. It's like, well, we have the dual screen and the 3DS, right? The Nintendo handhelds. And my anticipation was that we would get some sort of, I was hoping it would be a Pro, like some sort of Pro Switch situation. I don't know how that would have worked. And I couldn't have imagined it, but I could definitely imagine like a downgrade, because it's like, I don't want to give most kids a Switch to like take with them on a trip or somewhere, school, basically to walk. I hardly want to walk around with it myself. I don't even trust myself to walk around with this thing and not break it. So let alone, you know, a teenager or some other younger child. And I think I almost exactly hit the nail on the head with that one, which is funny, but kind of a shame. I feel like it seems as if Nintendo is not abandoning, that's a harsh word, but like they're obviously not going to continue necessarily developing first party or even second party games for the DS. I do hope that what we'll see is maybe some of these games being ported to the Switch, or maybe more development for those kinds of games on the Switch, which is probably already happening. There's a good handful, more than a handful of amazing indie titles already available on the Switch. So I think people are already kind of making the switch over to this platform, as opposed to developing for the 3DS anymore. And anybody who's kind of left over, you know, and still developing for the 3DS, they'll probably not be doing that for much longer. It was always kind of a butt to develop for in the first place, kind of like the Wii U was. Do you like the show Preacher? I have not seen the show Preacher. I don't watch very much like television proper, I suppose. I like cycle through different streaming services. I watch anime fairly regularly. I have a couple that I watch with Pidgey. One of the shows that I want to watch, I think is on Amazon, is Good Omens, which is a Terry Pratchett, if you're familiar with their novels. Pidgey is actually the one who introduced me to Terry. I don't know how I never discovered these on my own, but I enjoy them. And it sounds like to me that they did a pretty good job with like maintaining the integrity of that style. Because Terry Pratchett is not a religious writer. It's very kind of almost like not Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy per se, but it's in that kind of realm of ridiculous, I suppose. It was on the Nintendo, so it's definitely the Nintendo Switch Lite. Nintendo Switch. I guess you don't really need to say Nintendo. No one ever said like the Nintendo GameCube. It's just you just say the GameCube, the N64, the Wii. There was a Wii Mini, right? Or yeah, I believe there was a Wii Mini at one point. I don't believe the Wii U got any sort of like mid-generation. It definitely didn't, because the first part didn't sell very well. The Wii U did terribly, which is such a shame. I enjoyed it. They just marketed it really bad. I will say I am surprised that it's coming, that they announced it this year, I guess. I see why they wouldn't want to announce that at E3, because I don't think it would have I don't think it would have looked good to have that announced at E3, but I kind of would have thought they would have waited until next year. The Wii Mini, it was red. I have a red Wii back there. Beep. I don't think it's a mini though. I think it's just a normal one. I got it quite late because when I was in college, I kind of took a break from gaming stuff. So basically the Wii is what I skipped. But what are you gonna do? I still had a fun time with it. There were still plenty of games on the Wii that I enjoyed. I've got Wii games up there. Particularly Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword. One of my favorite Zelda games from a graphical standpoint. Whew. But beyond that, rough times. Rough times. I just really like that sort of watercolory, impressionist sort of art style. I've always been a big fan of Impressionism, Monet. The Wii Mini was red and black. I saw it in a golf place with an arcade. Oh. You know, I was there's actually a place like, well, it's not an arcade, but it's a store inside the mall. And this business model doesn't make any sense to me. So if you can explain this to me, please do so, because it doesn't make any sense. It's a space where people can go and rent a station to play an Xbox. I think they might have some PlayStations, maybe. I feel like for sure there's like Xbox stations. There might be. I don't believe there's any Nintendo stuff. And it's just like, I mean, this isn't the 90s, I guess. Like, I almost would understand like something like this in the 90s, where it was much more difficult for people to get their hands on certain games or to get their hands on the consoles in the first place. But, or maybe it's because I'm an adult. Maybe I'm just too old to understand like the appeal of this. Now, if it was like a streaming station, I could see it. It's like, okay, and I guess you can stream from your Xbox Live account, so maybe that's what people are using it for. But it just seems like the cost of it, it's just like, it's so expensive. It can't be worth it. Just started streaming Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 nights ago. I can't believe how big the world is. It's huge. And even now, there are still parts when I do my monster hunting streams in Breath of the Wild, because I have some post-game stuff that I'm working on. I'm like, how have I mean, maybe I'd been there, but I certainly didn't remember being there, and my map certainly didn't remember me ever being there. It's just like, it's amazing to me that there are still places that I have not gone. Like, how? You have the original white Wii that plays GameCube games. Now, I assume the mini Wii probably didn't have the GameCube disc. Actually, are they separate disc drives? I'd have to like grab my Wii. Maybe it's the same disc drive that plays both the GameCube games and the Wii. Because otherwise, I guess I don't understand like why you would need a mini, because you look at this thing and it takes up no space. It takes up no space. Which again, I think was a really smart move, because the GameCube, as much as I love it, I love you GameCube, and I really wish I had the purple one. Like, I still love my black one. It's fine. But it's not the purple. I had the purple one growing up. I had it. It was like my siblings and I, our families. It's kind of a chunk. It's kind of a big chonker. It takes up a lot. It takes up a bit of space. It just doesn't look I mean, I think aesthetically it's very clean. I like the design, especially when you compare it to like the N64. The N64, like, this thing's all over the place. It's just like this big, wide thing. Sort of like the Super NES. You know, it's just like you put the cartridge in the top, and you have all the controller ports on the front side, and it's this big, kind of wide, you know, dinner plate. I think the Mini didn't play the GameCube games, it just played Wii games. It's just sort of odd. It's just sort of odd to me, like, why you would need a mid-generation Wii. I mean, money, right? So it's just like, the Wii sold incredibly, incredibly well. So why not? But oh, sorry. And I do have my tea this morning because the weather has been a little bit all over the place. It's been not super hot, but then it will kind of drop down and get pretty chilly. And it's been very, I think, quite dry. Usually, because I grew up in the desert, I consider where I live in Idaho to be moderately humid, but it just hasn't really been that moist this summer. So, what are you gonna do? The newer Wii's didn't sell as well, I think. Not talking about the Wii U. I mean, that doesn't surprise me that the Wii Mini would not sell as well, because my guess would be because the original Wii sold so well and had penetrated parts of the market that had never really been tapped into before. Like, having a mid-generation console downgrade, really, it's a downgrade. It can't play GameCube games. Like, what's the point? So, I guess in that sense, like, it doesn't surprise me that it didn't sell as well, because it's like, who are you really targeting at that point? Now, the Switch Lite, the SL, are we gonna call it the SL? Like, what are we gonna talk about this? Oh, you're not talking about cells. Well, you're sorry. I misunderstood your sentence. I was trying to it just says didn't as well. Oh, the newer Wii's didn't as well. Like, didn't play GameCube games as well. I understand your sentence now. I'm sorry. But I do wonder if it's true about this. I would have to go and look at the sales to see if the game, or if the Wii Mini didn't sell as well. One, my guess would be yes for all the reasons listed, and because it's a downgrade. But I think the Switch Lite, the SL, which sounds weird, I think that would probably sell well. Especially, does anybody know when it's being released? Is it like, are they gonna drop this thing in time for the holidays? Because I could see it doing well as a gift for, like, kind of penetrating maybe some of the younger market, or maybe people would want to get two, I don't know, so they could have one to take on the go that they weren't worried about. It's the same price, Kenny. Like, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. But, like, I could see people wanting to get a sturdier version for the younger audience, or the clumsier audience, as the case may be. How many times have I dropped my Switch? Too many. Have I broken parts of it yet? Yep. The kickstand doesn't work correctly. I mean, it works, but it's lost all the tension in it. So, oh, saw September, but it's not confirmed. September, October would make sense. I think that's, definitely getting there for, like, holidays. Start, kind of trickle in some of those early adopters, and then people who, want to have that information for the holiday season, because you don't want to drop something like that, like, necessarily right on the holidays, because when you have these like mid-generation console upgrades, it's like you kind of need a certain amount of time for that to like kind of sink in with people that these are different things. Like, because we're not all gamers. We're not all gamers out there. We don't all understand these types of things perfectly. But yeah, did I have a topic for today? The answer is kind of. Also, I'm putting the prayer request / praise announcement form in the chat. Be sure to click that. If you're watching over on YouTube, Facebook, listening elsewhere, join us live sometime. Come over to twitch.tv/higherscoregaming. Hit the follow button. Turn on notifications. Like I said, we'll be playing with the time slots for the show over the next few Wednesdays. But if you want to join the conversation live, it's the most fun. I mean, in my opinion. I would much rather watch a stream live than not live. But I know some people have sent me messages through Twitter, through YouTube, through Discord about the show and how it has affected their lives. And I'm very encouraged to hear that stuff. Especially because when you're a streamer and you're pushing your message out to what feels like the void. Like, I look at chat and like I see Pokemon Girl and I see Mellow and like I see the chat. I see you guys are there. I see that there's viewers here. But when this content is not exactly like, people aren't exactly clamoring for this content on Twitch, right? Like, I'm there. If you found this and you're like, man, no, I've been searching for something like this, feel free to share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it just as much, because this stuff doesn't just like, there's not a lot of it out there. It can be difficult to find these kinds of communities that really build you up, that really encourage you to analyze yourself and pursue the things of the Lord instead of the things of the world, which is a very scary thing to be putting out in the first place, content-wise. But when I get these messages, it goes from like, man, am I really doing anything that matters? I mean, not that I get depressed about it, but it's just like, I don't know. I really don't know. It's like, am I really doing something that matters to, wow, this stuff has mattered to someone. And even if it just matters to a handful of people, then it's probably worth doing. I've been seeing, this is sort of like, did Kenny have a topic that she actually wanted to talk about today, or is she going to ramble about Nintendo stuff for 45 minutes? Yes. The answer is yes. Also, I need to do a little mini body check to make sure my back is still doing okay. We're good. So I'm on Twitter. Surprise! Like, what content creator these days is not on Twitter, is not on some sort of social media? Social. I don't really feel like I socialize a lot on my social media. It's sort of like driving. It's like calling a billboard a social media, right? Like, somebody has decided what to put on this billboard, and I happen to be driving past it because I'm on my, it's the Midwest. And it's the only thing to look at besides fields of corn and cows. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'll get to see cows, right? So it's like, here's this thing that's been pushed at me, and it's social. Could you imagine if that's actually how we interacted in real life, is we just all wore sandwich boards with our thoughts and opinions on it? And like, whoever we just happened to randomly pass on the street, like, that would be our experience with them and their thoughts and who they are as people, is just a sandwich board with, 140 characters. I mean, we get more than that now, but it's just kind of a shame that what I have been seeing recently on my social media excursions is a lot of kind of not great stuff. I mean, again, I think that there is a little bit of a weird kind of cultural shift from a couple of years ago when 2016 I started streaming. Everybody, gosh, that was almost 3 years ago. Holy moly. That was a long time, it feels like. 3 years ago when it was kind of all about like positivity streamers. And you guys, most of you have been around long enough to remember like what Twitch culture and YouTube culture was like at that time. Like YouTube was just kind of getting over the adpocalypse, still sort of recovering from that. People were still super salty. People still are, like, it's still not a great environment to be a content creator on the internet, right? It's becoming increasingly hard to support yourself like financially doing this stuff. That's beside the point. It might be part of the point because what I'm seeing is like people who are getting so burnt out, who are getting kind of the shift away from positivity culture, which I think is probably healthy, or it can be healthy. Some people are not doing it probably in the healthiest ways. I think there is a balance between being honest, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying before about like I'm no fun at funerals because I don't know when to not say certain things and to say certain things, mostly because of experience. But when you've been streaming long enough, you should know like when it's okay to kind of let certain things where it's like you don't have to be positive all the time. Like you should know how to be real. Like why is it we don't know how to function as real human beings on the internet? We just put on, you know, this facade, or we only show one facet of our personality at any given time for any given project, right? So it's like, oh, well, when I think of Kenny, I think of blonde hair, pink shirt, bubbly personality, like fun, right? Where, and like, you kind of get stuck and kind of put in that niche. And it's like, well, when I think of, you know, Doc Disrespect, I'm trying to think of like some other big name where it's like, he's really rude and funny, I guess. I don't really know. I don't really get what, like, he's a character, and so I get that he's like a character actor. And like maybe that's a good thing to do, you know, if you can separate your personal self from the like who you're portraying, because like at the end of the day, Twitch is entertainment, or should be. And a lot of people are like, no, you know, you have to stream because you love it and for yourself and be real. And the problem with being real on the internet is that there's no consequences. Sorry, my elbow just popped. I almost spilled tea all over my lap. I'm like, come on, elbow. Like, why you no work good? There are no consequences to being real on the internet, which I think actually leads people to being how do you put this? Like when you swing from one end of the spectrum of like putting on this facade to I think there's an actual, I think like the thing is like there's putting on the facade, and then everybody thinks that like being real is like on the other end of the pendulum, but it's not. Like being real, being true to yourself, finding your true calling, it's the middle. Because there's being fake, we'll say. There's being real, we'll say. I don't like these terms, but they're the terms I have. If you have better terms, feel free to give me better terms. And then there's like swing this way, where the worst parts of you come out, because like what is real is what you express within the confines of a structured society. There is no such thing as free speech. Sorry, I'm not gonna get political. I promise. I like someday if you come visit me in Idaho, we can get political. It'll be fun. Not today. So there's that, right? When there's no consequences to your actions, when you're no longer constrained by polite society or by social constructs, agreed upon social constructs, then it gets you over here, right? And I think that's what people are struggling with. And I've been, when Mello asked me earlier, does 30 feel different? Does being 30 feel different? And it's like, on the one hand, no. I mean, it's because of everything I said earlier. On the other hand, I've been having these particular thoughts lately about expression of self, expression of will, right? Because I think as a Christian, what you're ultimately dealing with is the will problem. I'm going to call it the will problem. I don't know if anybody's ever called it that before, but you have this problem of your will versus God's will. And people get really caught up in like, what is God's will for me? You know, like really specific things. Like, should I have oatmeal this morning or should I have a granola bar? What is God's will for me? Because I want to do God's will perfectly, as if it's some God's plan. There's a song about this, yes? Somebody, like pop culture reference. Am I relevant? I don't really know. I don't know if this is a real thing. I feel like I've seen references to this on the internet. This is a problem. I'm not cool with the kids. But the problem is, like, you don't even know what your own will is yet. And I think as we grow older and as we kind of shed some of these things we had wrong throughout our lives, if you're growing, if you're maturing as a Christian, as a human, I think everybody goes through this to whatever degree. Like, my social construct just happens to be primarily Christian because I've been a Christian for so long. I grew up in a Western society, you know, that's built on like Greco-Roman ideals, and you know, history is history. Like, you can't help history. So, you know, Judeo-Christian values, what are you gonna do? But we kind of realize at some point, like, what things of those matter and what doesn't. And like, I think I'm seeing that on social media with a lot of these creators, because we are getting older, and like some of them are still younger than me, but they have been in the public sphere, like kind of gaining an experience that is unique to this generation of media. And I think that causes people to mature differently. So if you go back to like the silver screen, you know, 1930s, you know, the golden age of Hollywood, because people were getting into acting and singing and performing at around the same age. You're really early on in life. You're still figuring life out, and now you're having to figure out how to navigate, you know, celebrity to a certain extent. It's going to affect how you mature. And while Twitch streamers aren't really most of them, unless you're Ninja or like Doc or some of those other really, really big names, Pokemains, I think, is one of them. You're not, or you know, YouTubers like PewDiePie or Game Grumps, Jacksepticeye, Markiplier. I'm just like, I'm trying. I'm reaching here. I'm like, who are these? Like, you know, big people. It matures you in a way that you just don't see. Like, you don't necessarily get to experience that. And so when I'm looking at these Twitter feeds of, you know, 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds, you know, they're not that much younger than me. Like, especially as you get older, you're like, that's 7 years. Like, 7 years feels like a lot when, you know, you're talking about like an 11-year-old and a 17 or 18-year-old. But once you're over 24, 25, it just, depending on which direction you go, right? So like, if you're 24 and you're talking about like a 7-year difference, you're like, ooh, they're still 17. Like, that still feels like a lot. But when you go up for some reason, it doesn't feel like as much. I don't know why. I'm sure there's probably an explanation for that. But I digress. You're seeing this maturing pool of content creators who are in their mid to late 20s / early 30s, like people like me or people who've been around a little bit longer. I only learned recently that I guess Jacksepticeye is only like just less than a year younger than me. I'm just like, he seems older for some reason. I don't know. It's because he's been doing this for a long time. Sorry, don't tell him I said he looked old. I didn't say he looked old. Why did I say that? Anyways, so you have this really, from a psychological standpoint and from a Christian standpoint, this like really unique group. Like, I don't know why I said that. But you have this really unique group of individuals who are working in an industry. I put an industry in quotes because, like, you don't get a paycheck. Like, we're doing this hobby. Some of us get paid a lot to do it. And it's maturing people in a really unique way. We're learning to interact with people in this sort of like social climate that we've never really seen this before. And I think maybe it's only because I started using Twitter in like 2016, but I think we're kind of slowly reaching the apex of like whatever. I don't think it's a breaking point. I don't think it's like, oh, everyone's going to abandon social media, or there's going to be like some mass exodus of content creators because it's too lucrative for a lot of people to abandon. And it's the siren song, like that siren song for a lot of young, like there's always going to be new blood coming in and replacing anybody who leaves. Like, replacing, that's a strong word, right? But it's like you're never going to be at a loss for content. There's always going to be something on YouTube, on Twitch for you to watch. I think there's going to be some sort of, maybe not adpocalypse. Adpocalypse was bad, right? It was bad for content creators. It's been bad for viewers. I think for you know, quality of content / finding the content you actually want. But I think what we'll see is some sort of shift in creator culture. Maybe this is weird because like I don't really feel like I'm a content creator, and I don't really feel like I'm a viewer. I'm like stuck somewhere in between. So it's fascinating to me. And I think as people grow, as people mature, and because we have access to these very public forms of expression, it's gonna get a little ugly. And, you know, my hope, I don't really know, like, what's the fix for this? Like, you need Jesus, I guess. I guess that's, like, you know, so it's like, what are you getting at, Kenny? Like, what's your... I didn't really, so I had this topic idea and I have like no thesis, I have no conclusion, I've got no answer except y'all need Jesus, which is like not really a good answer, right? But I guess what my hope is that as people mature and like because what's gonna happen, no one does this, no one goes from like facade to like healthily and appropriately expressing themselves. Nobody just goes from point A to point B like that. It's called a pendulum for a reason. So it's like, I think what we'll see is a lot of people who kind of swing, maybe not all the way over to like inappropriate, like, because I think that's the nature of like rebellion and figuring out who you are, is you kind of swing to the extreme. I hope we don't see too much of that, of people like abandoning all sense of like politeness and, you know, societal norms and like being, you know, functional, because that can have really negative consequences for them and for anybody else involved. So I don't want that for people. But what you'll probably see is like a little bit people, because they'll be testing the boundaries. It's like, okay, like I want to feel like I am actually expressing who I am, that, you know, that my audience, my friends that I've made on the internet, like, and I get that because like I really enjoy hanging out with you guys, and I know I've done most of the talking, so like I like to talk, I like for people to listen. Like I enjoy hanging out, I have thoughts, I have ideas, I want to be able to express them, and it's like how real can I be real? I don't want to be too real, to where I'm rude, to where I'm pushing people away. I want to be reasonable. And I think that's the shift that we're seeing, is content creators going from, I have built a brand around a particular facet of my personality, and now I want to have a more real, again, these are just words I feel like I have to use because I don't have better ones at the moment, and more, because I don't think there's anything unreal about the facade. So like, it's not like they're fake. They have just chosen to amplify a certain facet of their personality. Usually. I'm sure people can be fake too. But they want to go from being a one-dimensional person to being a multi-dimensional being. Because when you're on the internet as much as we are, and you're hanging out with me for a few hours every day, or every day, every week, used to be every day. We used to hang out a lot. Or you're hanging out and watching so-and-so's videos every single day, or so-and-so's stream. Like, you want to feel like you kind of actually know those people. And I have felt this with just creating content. There's something already inherently ephemeral about streaming. At least for me there was, because I wasn't really archiving them in any sort of way on YouTube. And it's just like, it's literally in the moment. We're here, we're hanging out, we're talking, we're listening, we're interacting, and then like once it's over, you know? It's not like you can go, I mean, I guess you could go back and re-listen and watch a VOD, or, you know, this show will be going out to the Higher Score Gaming YouTube. And so like, that's cool, but it still has that sort of ephemeral feel. And I guess this is like maybe why I probably was eventually like thinking this way in the first place, but you want the things you do to matter. So if you're making ephemeral content, ephemeral just means like it's non-permanent, right? It's not evergreen. It's like once it's over sort of thing. I know it's the internet and like nothing's ever truly gone. But if you're creating a character for yourself to fill a certain niche, then I just don't imagine that would be as rewarding in the long run. Because it's like, okay, I've been building this relationship, in quotes, a relationship with an audience, with viewers, with people of the internet for 3 years. And they don't really know who I am. They don't know what I like. I don't know what they like. Like, imagine, it's just like, could you imagine dating someone? I mean, like, and Kenny getting into scary territory here. Like, I'm not saying that you should treat Twitch like dating. It's not. But imagine spending any amount of time with someone. I'm using dating as an example. We could use marriage as well. Imagine being married to somebody for years and they had only been and like, I don't know how you would keep this up. This would be nuts. Gosh, my voice. I'm not used to talking so much. I'm a little out of practice. You can hear the scratchy scratch. That raspy voice. So good. This is not like good raspy. Some people have good raspy voices. This is not it. This is not the raspy voice you were looking for. But imagine you could maintain this facade for years. And I think streamers and YouTubers have been doing that. They script themselves into it. They play certain games. They interact a certain way. Getting to the end of those 3 or 4 or 5 years, even 1 year, and realizing that that you know nothing about this person. And they know, like, you know nothing about them. They know nothing about you. It's like, what was the point of all that time? I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but that is a scary thought. I just celebrated last month my 9-year anniversary, and I'm a different person. I'm a different person than I thought I'd be because a lot has happened to me in 9 years with my health. Pidgey is a different person than I thought he'd be because I'm, again, not actually clairvoyant, not actually a psychic, not actually, anything. Like, you don't really know how someone's gonna grow. I always knew he'd grow to be an amazing person, and he is, but it's a different kind of amazing than I had imagined when I was 20. I don't know. It's just sort of weird. It's a good weird. But I don't want to experience that with my friends. I don't want to get to 3 years into a friendship, which we're about, 2 months? 2 months away from 3 years of streaming. Some of you, looking at you, Pokemon Girl, Frulio, some of you guys have been around for pretty much that full 3 years. I think Frulio was like a month in, maybe. You were like in the first 100, I believe. I remember Pokemon Girl was number 88. I remember specifically. You came during the 1080 stream. Okay. So you were that was very close to the beginning, because that would have been in... I can't math, but it was very early on. Definitely within the first couple of months. Pokemon Girl was 88. I remember because we were doing a special October 8th, 88 followers, Mario Kart 8. Like, it was all about the 8s first. I don't know how we just arbitrarily decided to do this, but like we did. And so I want people to be like, okay, we're here. We've known Kenny, and I've known some of you for 3 years. Do I really? I mean, I know a lot of this is like kind of asymmetrical friendship happening because I do most of the talking, but it's like, do you feel like you know me, and do I feel like I know you? plus when you're fully out there and your community loves you, it actually means something to you. When you're only one-dimensional, when someone celebrates you, it's never really satisfying. Hi, Bob. Yeah, exactly. And I think that is why we're seeing this discontentment on Twitter. Again, I'm using Twitter specifically because like that's where most of my like interaction with other streamers happens. And I think that's why we're seeing this. We're seeing content creators dealing with this because they're going through a maturing process that is very public and very weird. And like, I think anybody who's ever been in media of any kind at some point probably deals with something like this. But like, what you should know is like the only person who's ever going to really know you the best is the Lord. And like, whether you like it or not, that's, you know, it's a great self-reflection moment. And I think, you know, if you're listening and you're a Christian and you're seeing this with people you love personally, that you have a personal connection to, I don't know if you should be reaching out to like random content creators you love and like sharing I mean, if you can, I guess, share the gospel with them, but it always means more when there's a personal connection. So look out for those opportunities to reach out, to support a fellow Christian, a content creator, someone who you see kind of struggling with their maturity, their real self. Again, I don't like the word real self, but it's the word I have. So, you know, I think being gracious as a Christian, being supportive, being able to give them the gospel, these are probably the times where the harvest is most ripe, where people are already doing that kind of self-reflection, that they're already picking things apart and dealing with some of these bigger questions. So chances are they may not know it, but they probably have things of the Lord, like bigger questions on their mind, reconciling their experience with the world, dealing with morality. I don't think every Christian out there is probably cut out for missionary work, but I think every Christian out there should be able to have a good relationship with their fellow Christians, and to be loving and caring and kind. So I don't know. Maybe other people don't see it the way I see it, the environment that we live in. And I think it's going to seep down to more than just content creators. It's going to probably seep down into, you know, my generation and younger, who are like the social media crew, people who live their lives on the internet. Like, let's be real, we're all here on the internet. We all live our lives on the internet to some extent. So I think this is part of the maturing process, and being aware and open to the opportunities to build up other Christians, or to share the gospel, or to just provide love and support to someone. It's out there. It's absolutely out there. My pastor's father is a fairly prominent Christian, I guess, in our area and like back east. And he said, don't pray for the opportunity for evangelism unless you're ready for it, because you, like, once you pray for it, like, you'll see the opportunity everywhere. he was being joking, not like it wasn't necessarily serious advice. Like, don't pray to have opportunity. Like, if you want the opportunities, that's the thing. The opportunity is always there. Whether you pray for it or not, as soon as you start looking for it, it's there. So, be on the lookout. Go out into the world, my children, with your eyes wide open, with your arms wide open. That's a song. Arms wide open. Creed? I want to say. You know, and you know, if you're dealing with this yourself, if you're dealing with, which again, I can honestly say, like, this is stuff that's been on my mind with turning 30, with coming back to streaming, with my health situation being not super great. I love those little, like, Mickey hands. At least that's what they look like for Leo. If you're dealing with this stuff, like, it's okay to be dealing with this stuff, and, like, that pendulum of being one-dimensional facade to trying to find your true self, to, you know, chaos, a character of chaos, you know, someone who's not exercising prudence and wisdom and love, you know, you're gonna go through some rough times. Be praying, be open with the people you trust, the mentors that you may have in your community, pastors, deacons, elders, whatever you have, because, like, they should want to help you, and they should be there to help you. And in the meantime, find communities hopefully like this one where you can, you know, chat and talk. And, you know, I know this is like a really weird, visit higherscoregaming.com to stay connected to the community. They also have a Discord that you can find the link to on their website, and find good company, because it's, as somebody who as a Christian who tried to go it alone during some really formative years of my life, after I moved to Idaho, and I didn't find a church that I was really comfortable in with teaching that was as sound as I would have liked it, I decided to go it alone. I wasn't good at it. I can't honestly say that a lot of growth happened during that time. So the importance of community, whether it's church or small groups or some sort of mentoring situation, or just a close Christian friend whose counsel you trust, you know, this stuff is important to have. And I'm hoping that that's what we're creating here on The Missing Piece. I know I do a lot of talking. I did a lot of the talking today. Sometimes I do a lot of the talking. Sometimes I'm moderating the talking. And if we have a big group with lively discussion, we're kind of open to Christians, non-Christians, and people who are respectful of the conversation, right? That's all I'm really hoping for. So, seriously, that's all my thoughts. That's all my thoughts that I had today. Is just like, I mean, I think anytime you celebrate a big birthday, like it's a decade birthday, so it's like, maybe this is my existential moment for, you know, every couple of years. You gotta deal with one of those. Especially because I think everyone has an idea of what life should look like when they're a certain age. And this is not what my life, or not what I thought it would look like when I was younger. So I've been thinking a lot about maturity and making sure that I'm growing as a Christian in the way that as far as I can tell, and as far as, you know, talking with the people I respect in my life, you know, I want to be a good role model. You don't have to agree with me. In fact, you can feel very, very free to tell me when you don't agree with me. I think that's hopefully a good mark in my favor. But yeah, if you've been watching over on YouTube, Facebook, or listening elsewhere, feel free to come on over to twitch.tv/higherscoregaming, hit the follow button, and turn on notifications. Like I said, the missing piece specifically will be kind of do-si-doing on some different time slots over the next couple of weeks, as I want to best find the time that best serves the community, which I know like, well, changing times around all the time doesn't really help, but it's gonna be in that like 10 to 9 a.m. Pacific, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time, trying to hit the lunch hour for like Eastern time folks, and then, I mean, that's the hope. But before we go, how I usually like to kind of wrap up the shows is checking our prayer request / praise announcement Google form. This form is always available on the channel through Nightbot !request. I do not pray on stream, but I do like to read these out loud. I'll pop them into the Discord into a little synopsis for the community to pick up and pray for. My hope is that you have some sort of prayer life, whether that's, you know, praying immediately for things that touch you in whatever way, or writing it down for later, whether you pray in the evening or first thing in the morning. The important thing is that you have one. I agree with you. As Christians, we need to reflect Christ in all that we do, and I think people take notice, even if it's just little things. People do tend to notice when you're the odd one out in whatever weird way, because Christians we're kind of weird. we're kind of weird as a religion, and as people. I think Christians tend to stand out. Sometimes in good ways, sometimes in bad ways. Again, that's kind of you kind of had to figure that out for yourself, and figuring out, you know, when to be honest and when not to be, not to be dishonest, but just exercising care with what you say to people. Oops, that's the last of my tea. Perfect timing. All right, I think we only have one announcement. I have always been the odd one out. It's weird. I know I've always been a weird one, just in general. I was one of the few kids, boys or girls, just of any of my classmates, who was really into video games growing up. I was also super into like musical theater and costuming and LARPing before I knew what LARPing was. I've always just been sort of an odd one. And then as a Christian, I guess probably the weirdest thing for me was people would be like, I didn't realize you were a Christian. And I know some people would be like, well, that's a problem. Like, it should be very apparent that you're a Christian because you should always be talking about it. Like vegans. Sorry to pick on vegans, but like that's sort of the stereotype, right? Like, vegans will always, whenever there's an opportunity to tell people that they're vegan, they will do so, you know? And so I pick on vegans a little bit. I have nothing against vegans except that they're wrong. Unless they just don't like it, in which case then it's not a moral issue, so it's just your opinion. But for me, I think the interesting thing is it's when people are like, oh, I didn't realize you were a Christian. And then they think about it and they're like, oh, like all the signs are there, but I was never, you know, until it's like I have the talk or actually say it. Even if I've shared the gospel, even if I've talked about religious things, you know, philosophy and ethics and morality and all of these, you know, politics and constructs and society, you know, it's just, unless you say the words, a lot of people don't realize that you're a Christian. I think it's part of it. And I think the second part is, it's better to stand from a point of logic than a point of identity. And I'm like, sorry, I'm getting into like some, this is like wobbly ground, but I don't want to just argue or debate or anything from just, I'm a Christian. It's like, because I said so, right? I believe this because I'm a Christian. It's like, I mean, it's okay to do that, especially when you're younger and you're, you know, still forming opinions. But I think at some point you have to kind of let that go, because it's not how do I say this? Because like, well, it's God. How can you say it's not strong enough? It's not good enough. It's God. God said so. Even like the Jews in the Old Testament had some, like, even when like straight from the mouth of God, they were given commandments, were given instruction, were given the law, they still couldn't do it, you know? So it's like, it's not good enough, because not because God isn't good enough, because of humans. Humans aren't good enough. Like, we can't obey perfectly. We're not robots. If we could obey perfectly, there wouldn't have been a problem, and we probably wouldn't have fallen in the first place, right? Because that was an obedience problem. So what are you gonna do? So when you're talking to people who aren't Christians, it's like, you know, relying on biblical authority or relying on, you know, because God said so, is not a problem for you, but it's a problem for who you're talking to, right? So like, I want to find like the lowest common denominator I have with someone, and the best lowest common and stand from there, right? Because when suddenly people realize that you're a Christian, that you have been this whole time, and everything clicks and makes sense, and they're like, oh, that's why you think this, and that's why, and it's like, no. All of my arguments that I beat you, like, not that I beat you competitively, but it's like, these conversations that we've had, you don't get to invalidate just because, oh, I'm a Christian and I'm a crazy person. Like, because that's what a lot of people think. They're like, oh, well, they're just a Christian, you know. Of course, they have to say they think that. They have to do that. It's like, no, I believe what I believe. You know, with all of the argumentation, with all of the support, the evidence that I've given you, you don't get to invalidate that just because I'm a Christian. So that was a really long-winded, like, roundabout. Let's get to our prayer requests. I was making a point there. I don't know if I ever made it, but I hope I did. This one is from, we only have one this week, in the requests form, but I will also put a praise for my back, for people if you've been praying for my back or just my health in general. I did get back news from the doctor. I have some things that I can do, for my normal weird health situation, and my back's feeling a lot better. But this is from Frulio. I brought my coworker to church for the first time last week. Woo! I hope that the service encourages him to seek the truth and follow God. I will also be sharing my full testimony of how I came to know Christ personally with my fellowship group. I pray that the Holy Spirit speaks through me when I share. Aw, Frulio. I know there's been a lot of testimony sharing in the Discord, which I think it's always very encouraging and interesting to hear people's testimony. I encourage you to, like, write it out. It can really help. in like nailing down, you know, the bits and the pieces that you definitely want to make sure you touch on. Oh, I think I'm doing an audio recording. Definitely write it down first. And then sharing it as a video. Oh my goodness, that's like quite the production. I know it can be very intimidating, but I believe in you, and it will be very, I don't know if you'll get like have a place that you can share it where the rest of the community here on Higher Score Gaming can like view it or watch it or whatever. But hopefully I will get, I'm looking forward to hearing it. And actually, you know, this is like a good exercise. So I haven't been very good about doing the care quests, which is sort of our self-care, mindfulness exercises that I do on my other channel. But this is probably something as a Christian, it's probably good to do at least once in your life. So it's sort of like nailing down how you want to share the gospel, which is something I've been working on over the last several months. Well, I guess forever. Like, it's really kind of something that keeps evolving as my thinking evolves. Not in huge ways, but in small ways. It's an interesting exercise to write or record your testimony in somewhere. I feel like writing it down and getting it organized is probably the way to do it, instead, because if I tried to just say my like spoken testimony, it'd be all over the place, and you wouldn't really you wouldn't really able to go back and revise it at all if you like missed something or wanted to insert something later on. But I encourage you guys, this is your encouragement, your call to action, is write your testimony down. Think about it. If you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, how's your life been going? How's that working out for you? Maybe write that down. Your experience with Christians. I know a lot of people have had terrible experiences with Christians or people who claim Christianity. They might have been Christians, which is it's a damn shame, but they might have been. They might not have been. So I'm wondering, like, if you're here and listening to this or watching this, if you're a Christian, or not a Christian, like, what's your experience with Christ been? Because, like, whether you're a Christian or not, you've had an experience with Christ, probably. Whether it's Christ through someone who's claimed to be a Christian, or personally as a Christian, you know, your salvation, your sanctification, you know, your maturing and growth in Christ. I have so much to share in my testimony. I need to have it written down first. Yeah. I imagine there's a lot to cover usually with people. No one's born a Christian. No one's born good. And even if you're raised in a Christian family, that doesn't mean you're a Christian. You know if you're a Christian. And it can be very hard to admit that you're not if you've been raised in a Christian family. And you're older and you're just like, I don't think I'm a Christian. And it's like, well, of course you are. You're raised in a Christian family. Don't let anybody force feed you that garbage. That's not what makes Christians. You make the choice. So there's your I don't know what to call it. Some sort of Christ quest for this week. That's like two different things. Are you a Christian? What has been your relationship with Christ? Regardless of if you're a Christian or not. So, because I tell you, even when I encounter people who are like, I am not a Christian, I don't have any interest, like they have had a relationship and some sort of thing has happened with Christians or people who claim Christianity or whatever. I'm also getting baptized. Frulia, that's exciting. Baptisms. We're having a group baptism situation here as well later this summer in someone's pool, I guess. It's very cool. Are you going to do do they have a tub? Do they have a pool? Jacuzzi? Where do people get baptized? I just had water sprinkled on them. I didn't do full dunk. My mom did full dunk. I got sprinkled on. We have a tank at church. It's in the main sanctuary. cool. I've seen some of those baptism tubs and I'm just like, they don't seem big enough. I feel like I'd bonk my head on it. But I'm sure it looks smaller when you're not inside it. I'm certain that must be the case, but that is all that we have for today. My name has been Kenny Hill. You can find me at twitch.tv/Kenny Hill or youtube.com/Kenny Hill. And if you are watching over on YouTube, Facebook, or listening elsewhere, join us on Wednesdays at some time. Come to twitch.tv/higherscoregaming. Click the follow button, turn on notifications. That is the best way to stay involved with the Twitch channel, or go to higherscoregaming.com and join the Discord. It's a great group. We try to be good company, have great conversations, funny crowd, lots of gaming. So if you're especially a Christian gamer, check them out. And I will see you guys next week at some time to be determined.